Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. I hope you all can hear me. So first of all, please, this is Yair. Okay, if you haven't recognized yet, please write in the chat box that you can hear me, so I know I'm not alone in this virtual universe. Okay, that's a good start. And with me here is also Mira, of course. So Mira, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, great. So, okay, so it's good. I can see that most of you can hear me. If someone, is having trouble hearing me, sometimes, of course, there is a problem with the connection or something. I hope it gets better during the session. There is not much I can do about it now. So tell me if there is something wrong, and we need to try something else. Okay, so we'll start in a minute with the real stuff, with the real content of this lesson. But first, let's just see that we're on the same page of how things work here in this virtual screen. So what you see here is the screen of the system. As you have already seen, you have the chat box. Please use the chat box only for relevant stuff with connection to the lesson, and not other stuff. Please, like you're in classroom, okay? Like you're in a real classroom. Another important area is the lower part here. You all have two main things you will need to use here. One is the hand, the little symbol of the hand here. If you click it, it's like raising your hand in a classroom. If you have a question, or if Mira asks you to raise your hand if you know the answer, etc., you click it. So please, everyone, try to click and raise your hand, and look at the participant list to see the raised hands. Please, everyone, raise your hand by click on the symbol. Great. Okay. Still waiting for Saja, Samir, Yam. Okay, that's good. And now lower your hands. Madeleine, are you with us? Oh, that's great. Okay, and you can also, of course, lower your hand so it doesn't get tired. Okay, and the other important button is the microphone. Okay, this one. When you press the mic, you can talk. When you press it again, you mute it. Mutes. Okay, so please use the mic only when you really need it and ask to talk. Okay, after raising your hand. I'm talking about the microphone at the bottom of the screen. Okay, not the microphone next to your name, which I think some of you clicked by mistake. Okay, so I think that's it with the technical stuff, and we can continue. By the way, this lesson is recorded, so first of all, you can use it afterwards. We'll send you the link, etc. And second of all, don't say or write something you regret. Okay. Okay, and now we can start with the thinking part. So
okay, now wait a minute. Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm glad to be with you here in our first online meeting. I hope you've been using our ideas, the methodology that we presented in the seminar, and have tried to use some of the activities that we practiced. And today we're going to introduce more activities that you can use with your students. Our aims, just let me remind you of what we said in the seminar. We want to enhance thinking. We want our students to think more deeply about the subjects that you discuss in class. We want to encourage them to go to deepen. And also we want to strengthen the language skills. Today we're going to focus on reading comprehension and how to teach short stories. So let's start. And as you remember, we always begin with individual work. I want to ask you to think of your best student. Think of someone that is a very good student of yours or that was a very good student of yours, and write down a description of that student in your notebooks, okay? Think about it and then write about one paragraph between 4 to 6 sentences about that student. If you don't understand the task, as you remember, we raise our hands. If someone doesn't understand, please raise your hand. So we guess you all understand the task. Please write a description.
Whoever finishes, please also raise your hand so we know you finished. Tali, you're having problems hearing us? For now, you can also read the instructions from the presentation. When you finish, please raise your hand so we can know everybody's done.
So you have 1 minute to complete the description. Okay?
Eight, 9, well, already finished. Wait 30 seconds more.
Let's move to the next step. Please read your descriptions. I hope by now you've all finished. Read your descriptions and think of 3 characteristics of the students you've described. The most important characteristics that describe the student, and write 3 adjectives that describe that student in your notebooks. Again, if the task is not clear to someone, please raise your hand. The task is to read the description that you've written and to choose the 3 most important characteristics of that particular student that you've described. Describe him in 3 adjectives and write these 3 adjectives in your notebooks. Is it clear now, Bayan? Was that you have these 3 adjectives in your notebooks. Can you hear me? So, what are you asking? We prefer not to give examples. We want you to think by yourself and try to answer by yourself. Let's hope that it's what we expected. If not, nothing will happen. Don't worry.
And I remind you all, when you finish writing in your notebooks the 3 adjectives, 3 concepts, please raise your hand so we know you've finished.
Seconds to complete this task, please. Raise your hands when you're done.
Move on. And I will give you a link in a minute. In this link, you will open a page like the one I'm going to show you. Just a second. Okay, you will all see this. Oh, I'm not sure you see it correctly.
Maybe you can do it with a share.
Okay, can you all see this screen? Just tell me so I can know you're with me. Okay, so we will ask you to write down the 3 concepts you wrote in your notebooks. Write them down here. After each word, you type in 1 word and then press submit, and then the second word. Okay. So I'm now going to give you
the 3 adjectives.
The 3 adjectives. I'm now going to give you the link for that. Here it is. So just press with your mouse, click on the link. It will open Answer Garden in another tab on your browser. If you have any technical difficulties, please raise your hand. could I also put the link on the chat box. So try to click it there. Then click submit and then write another one. Okay, this is 3 times. Do that. Do it 3 times. Submitting all 3 concepts, 3 words. You can go back to the original web page. I mean, the system of this lesson, and you'll see a cloud of concepts. Which you wrote.
As you can see, motivated, polite, and persistent were the most important characteristics, or the ones that you use the most. But there are other important characteristics. Read the list, remember it. We will come back to it later on. Okay?
Let me just explain that if 2 people wrote the same concept, it will be presented in a bigger font, okay? And if 3 people wrote the same concept, it will be even bigger, okay? That's the idea here. So this is why we have differential sizes, different sizes.
Okay, let's move on to the next. All right, so just let me sum up everything that we've done so far. The first activity was a think, pair, share activity. As you remember, we always begin with individual work. We give every student the opportunity to think for himself. This is a very good jump starter when you ask people to write a description. You can ask them to write a description of an event, of a character, of a problem, anything. The students are busy describing that event or person or whatever you're asking them to describe. And then after that, what we did was conceptualization. What is conceptualization? We asked them to examine what they've written and try to understand the whole, according to the parts, according to the most important parts in this whole. So in this case, we asked you to write adjectives. You can also ask them to write nouns or noun phrases to understand the deeper meaning of what they've written. In this case, you described a good student, and then you were given the opportunity to think more deeply about it and think about the characteristics that make a student a good student. So this is the think, pair, share routine that we have been used in the seminar, and it's very simple and very useful. After doing the first part by themselves, the students share their ideas. In this case, we wrote it here on the board. And then it's always good to ask them to write a question about the things that they see. Don't leave it as it is on the board. Just give them an opportunity to ask a question about it, to think more deeply about it. Today, because our time is short, we are not doing it, but we will come back to this list later on. Okay, and now let's move to the next activity. Any questions? Is there someone who wants to ask a question? Please raise your hand. Okay, it's a short Zen story, but as you can see, it's not complete. We've omitted the last sentence in the story. What you need to do is to read it, and then to complete the story, to write an ending to this story. Okay, write the last sentence in your notebooks, according, of course, to the story. Make it relevant to the whole story. Again, if you don't understand, raise your hand. A student who does not understand, I remind you, we always ask who does not understand. A student who does not understand. Feel free to say, I don't understand. It's important. I don't understand. It's okay. We welcome questions and we welcome mistakes. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Write an ending to the story. Raise your hand.
when you finish. Raise your hand for now. We wait for all students to complete the task.
And as you remember, we spoke about it in the seminar. Thinking requires time. Give the students enough time to think about it. So the others will have to wait and still think more about this story and the message of the story. With the internet.
The last three to finish.
No, you are one of the three, no? So, you ready? Okay. Who wants to share his ending with us? Please raise your hands. We want more volunteers, please. Waiting for more volunteers, please. The story, you all completed the last sentence, and only 2, 3, 4 people are willing to share it with us. That's very strange, isn't it, Yair?
Very interesting.
Okay, so the first one to raise his hand, her hand, was Bayan. Bayan, there are 3 more students who raised their hands, but we don't see them. It's Samir, Tali, and I think Iyam, right? Iman. Choose one and ask him what his ending was. Bayan, can you hear me? Use your microphone.
You can use your mic. Can you hear us? Okay, so
I don't see the task anymore.
okay, so as Mira said, there are a total of 4 students who raised their hands. You were the first one, so please choose from the other 3 one who will give us his
Her
sentence.
microphone is not working.
Oh, okay. So you can write it
write his name
in the chat box.
Your ending where?
In the chat.
In the chat box. Can you please?
Samir, the ending of your story. Samir,
Also,
have you
your
finished?
students do sometimes they feel full. That's the ending.
Okay.
So the story, can you show them the whole story now? Okay, so like this cup, Nanin said, and then what Samir said, also your students do sometimes they feel full. Okay, is this what you meant, Samir? So, Bayan, can you please write yours, share it with us? Is it different from Samir's? Okay. I have more, but it's okay. The chat box, and we will put it on the board. All right, so as you can see, there are two endings on the board. Yair, if you can they see both the ending and the story? Is it possible? If not, okay. You remember the story, don't you? So there are two endings here. One, the first one by Samir, also your students, too. Sometimes they feel full. And the second one by Bayan, also your brain, when your brain is full, it starts to overflow to other areas and other people. You must start to share it with others so that you don't waste it. Okay, so read these two endings carefully, please. And then we're going to vote and see who do you think is more relevant to the story. Okay? Those of you who think that number one, that A is more relevant to the story, please press A. And those of you who think that B is more relevant, press B. Ask, raise your hand.
Okay, we are still missing 2 votes. And Bayan, we're still waiting for your vote. You need more time? Vote for one of the sentences. Okay. And Haitham? Okay, great. So the results. Are you ready? Here they are.
Okay, so as you can see the results. And now what we want to ask you to do is what we ask the students in the classroom to justify their choice. Write one sentence, one argument that explains why you preferred A or B. Okay, in your notebooks. If you don't understand the task, please raise your hand. I keep saying the same thing again and again. Raise your hand if you don't understand. What is that question? Okay, so we need to ask. Carol, can you please ask your question? What is your question? Open her.
Thing.
What do we have to do? I would probably ask her, what do you think we need to do? You remember that from the seminar, but here I see that some of you have a problem with the mic, so we will explain again. You chose one of the two endings, right? Some of you chose A, others chose B. Now, you need to justify your choice, to write one sentence that justifies your choice. I chose A because, and you need to explain why, or I chose B because, and you need to explain why. Okay? All right.
Yeah, we don't write the answers here, just everyone in their notebook. everybody can finish their arguments in their notebooks. And if you finish, raise your hand.
Few things about this last activity, asking the students to complete the story. It's a very good activity and students like it, especially when there is a twist in the end of the story or a poem. But you can do it, there are different variations, but the technique is the same. First of all, you ask them either to complete the last sentence, to write an ending, and it has to be relevant to the whole text, of course. Or you can give them the whole text and ask them to write an alternate ending, a different ending to the story. You can also ask them to write you can ask them what is the main idea, what is the main subject, or what is the lesson that the writer wants to teach us. And then they write by themselves, they think by themselves, they write. Then we ask them to share the answers, as we did here, only 2 students. We asked them to compare. We had a vote to make everyone participate. But then the next step is very, very important. Whenever you say something, you don't just raise your hand and you say, oh, I like it, because. Why? Because. No. You have to justify your choice. And as you could see, it's not easy to write a justification, to write an argument. It's a skill that you need to develop and to think more deeply in order to do it properly. So we have to practice and do it again and again. But our message to the students is always, you always need to support your answer with justification. You need to explain why you are saying the things that you're saying. So this was one idea how to teach reading comprehension of short texts. And now let's show you the answer that the writer of the story had, the last sentence or 2 sentences that he wrote. See the ending of the story. Like this cup, Nanin said, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you then unless you first empty your cup? Okay, so I liked your endings. They were very good, and you all gave us food for thought, and this one is also interesting. Let's move on to the next activity. Okay. All right. So another Zen story, a short story. You need to read it, and this time you need to invent a headline, like a newspaper headline. A headline, as you know, has to be short. It's not a complete sentence, and it has to be catchy. It has to attract the attention of the readers, and it also has to reflect the meaning of the text, to pinpoint the most important elements of the story. So please read this story. And then write a creative headline in your notebooks. Like a title, Carol, yes.
Please raise your hand. After you have a title in your notebooks, please raise your hand. Use your headlines only in your notebooks, not here. Don't display it to others. A little more time, so everyone can finish. When you do, please raise your hand. Still wait for 5 of you to finish.
Now we are going to share our titles. We want to make it visible. You remember we talked about visible thinking, making our thinking visible. So now we are going to write the titles on a special board, and in a moment Yair will explain how.
Okay, so we are going to use another tool, which I will try to share your screen, share my screen with you to show you. Just a second. Okay, so in a minute I will give you the link for this board. In this board, you will all be asked to write down your titles. So how you do it? First, you go with the mouse and click on the yellow sticky note. Okay, one click, and then it opens the sticky note, and you write something. Title. Yes, you can use no. Leave it a yellow sticky note. You can change the color of the text if you'd like. And then, very important, after you finish typing it in, you click the post button, okay? Then it's on the board, and you can grab it with this mouse hand, where you have room on the board, okay? So this is your task for now. Let me give you now the link. Like before, just click the link, and it will get you in a new tab to this board. If someone has a question or some technical issues, please raise your hand. Only on yellow sticky notes. A question or some technical issues? In the oh, it's in the chat box. I see Najwan put it already. So try to take it from there.
Can I send it here?
If you're, yes, post it here in the chat box and I will make it, I will make a note out of it. Leila, Iman, and Ajwan. Now I've also noticed that there are other sticky notes of your colleagues. If you don't see the other sticky notes, you can refresh the page of the Lino app of the browser. And then you'll see all of them. And I will just share the screen here also, so you can also see it here. Here we go. And notice that we can move along the board by pressing a black page. Sticky notes, so it covers more than your screen, so you can move around in this on this board by clicking on an empty space and dragging the mouse. Okay, so this is how you can see your friends, all of your friends' titles.
You can see this activity of writing headlines is fun, and the students love it because they are free to be creative and write catchy and funny headlines. And we've made it visible by putting it on the wall. You can do it in the classroom, put all those titles on the wall. And now we want you to read these titles. As you remember,
first of all, if you're still on the showing in your screen the board, please come back to the tab of our lesson so you see the presentation.
Okay, so read all these beautiful titles, all these headlines, and pick one of the headlines and ask a thought-provoking question about that headline, something that will make us think more deeply about the subject. First of all, write your questions in your notebook to make it easier. Then Yair will take you to the Lino and he will write it on a green note and drag it under that title. Okay, he will explain later. First of all, write a thought-provoking question about one of the headlines in your notebooks. Okay? If it's not clear, please raise your hand.
Demonstrate again. Let me just share my screen. So now if I want to write down my question and put it on the board, I choose this time the green sticky note, write my question, then again I post it, and afterwards I need to go to the to this same sticky note, and you see that the hand changes its shape. And when I click, I can drag the sticky note to the relevant title to which I referred. Okay, so this is what will be your next assignment. So please write down your questions on these green sticky notes and drag them to the relevant titles. If there are any questions, please raise your hand. The board and see the other other notes. If you click on a black on an empty space and drag it. Okay, so we begin to see some green notes here. That's good. You have it now on the presentation screen. If you don't remember the task, please read it again. You need to ask a question. Write it on a green sticky note and then drag it to the relevant title. finished and you have posted a green note, please raise your hand so we know you've finished. If you finish, please raise your hand so we know you finished. Seeing some notes, because they are covered with other notes, you can click on them, on these specific notes, and they will be they will go to the front.
Are you there? Okay, so interesting questions on the board, and you could all feel how effective this activity is. We started with writing titles, and this was the fun part, but it also made us think more deeply about the subject, about the text that we read. And then, as I said before, we don't end with answers. We always want to end with questions. I asked you to write questions, and you wrote here beautiful questions that show that you thought more deeply about those titles, like how can we teach it? How can we teach? How much patience should we show? How can we teach it if we don't have it? Can you give patience? Can you give it to me now? How can we overcome difficulties in life? Is asking a bad thing? Is there a connection between listening and enlightenment? Many very interesting questions that are for us, food for thought. And tomorrow, if you want, you will watch the recording again, and you will have an opportunity to think more about all these beautiful questions. So let's move to the next activity, the last one.
By the way, you don't have to wait for the recording. You can also use these same links and go back to the to these boards. The answers and the titles will still be there. Okay. Okay.
So let's move to the last activity, I think. Okay. Do you remember in the beginning of the session we wrote adjectives that describe the good student? So let's examine this list again. And maybe you have something that you want to add. You can add to the list now after we read the two stories about good students, the idea of a good student. And then think of a way how to improve and how to strengthen these characteristics in our students. So choose one quality, one characteristic, and think of an idea how to strengthen this activity, this quality in our student. And then Yair will explain how to do it on the board. It's the same procedure on the sticky board.
Yes, okay? We're going to use the same idea, the same app, just a new board. So to get into the new board, please use this this link you see now.
Yes, but they need to see the adjectives, so please show them the
adjectives. You can also see the adjectives by returning to the first page. I post it now on the chat box. Okay, these are the words, and I will also show them here. Here you see them. And the link I'm posting now in the chat box is for the new sticky notes board. So if you have any question or you don't understand something or you have technical issues, please raise your hand. On the board. Notes on the board with two ideas, three. In a minute, I will also present the board on this presentation. this session, so everybody can put their notes on the board with their own ideas. Before we move on towards the end of our session. On the presentation, so you all can see that if you haven't yet.
Okay, let's. So as you can see, there are beautiful ideas here that we can all learn from. And you have it, it will stay on the board so you can read it at home, read it tonight or maybe tomorrow. We are also going to send you worksheets with the activities that we had here in this session, and also one more activity that we did not manage to do here, but you can use with your students. Everything that we did here tonight can be done in the classroom using the same methodology, the same classroom routines that we introduced in the seminar. And I would like to hear your comments. If you have questions, comments, more ideas that you want to share, please feel free to write to us. And I must tell you that I enjoyed meeting you and sharing and thinking together about all these questions here tonight. I hope that you all enjoyed it. And we'll see you again. When? When is our next meeting?
In about a month, I think.
In about a month. Okay. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.